I stood in the glass-walled conference room of Miller Digital's headquarters, watching my husband Andrew wrap his arm around Olivia's waist, both of them laughing at some private joke. They thought I was on a flight to Chicago for my mother's birthday. Instead, I was here, briefcase in hand, about to change the course of all our lives. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Are you absolutely certain about this, Rebecca? Whispered Samantha, my best friend and financial advisor, her eyes fixed on the pair through the glass. Once Marcus makes the announcement, there's no going back. I straightened my navy Armani suit, purchased last week with the platinum card Andrew still believed we shared. I've never been more certain of anything in my life, I replied, feeling surprisingly calm for someone about to upend a decade of marriage and her husband's entire career in one fell swoop. 6 months ago, I was Rebecca Miller, dutiful wife of Andrew Miller, founder and CEO of Miller Digital, a boutique marketing firm he'd built from scratch with my emotional support, connections, and the small matter of my family's investment capital. I had put my own MBA and career aspirations on hold to help Andrew realize his dreams. For years, I'd been the perfect corporate wife, hosting dinner parties for clients, editing his presentations, offering strategic advice in private, while allowing him to take full credit in public. My first inkling that something was wrong came during last year's company holiday party. I noticed Andrew's eyes following his new executive assistant Olivia Parker as she moved through the room in a dress that towed the line between professional and provocative. I dismissed the twinge of unease. After all, Olivia was barely 30, 12 years younger than Andrew. She was just a talented assistant he'd hired based on her impressive resume, or so I told myself. As winter turned to spring, Andrew's late nights at the office multiplied. He installed a new password on his phone. The scent of a perfume I didn't wear clung to his shirts. Classic signs I chose to ignore until that fateful Thursday in April when I stopped by his office unannounced, with lunch only to find it empty. His calendar, still open on Olivia's computer, showed no meetings. When I asked her where he was, she flushed and stammered something about an unexpected client emergency. My suspicions fully awakened, I did what any self-respecting woman would do. I hired a private investigator. Within 2 weeks, I had a folder of photos showing Andrew and Olivia entering the Harrington Hotel downtown, not emerging until the following morning. The date stamps showed this had happened at least 7 times over the past 3 months. That night, when Andrew came home talking about a grueling client presentation, I listened silently, nodding in all the right places while mentally cataloging every lie. I didn't confront him. Instead, I called Samantha, who put me in touch with Marcus Delaney, the best divorce attorney in Portland. "You're in a uniquely advantageous position," Marcus had told me during our first meeting. "Your family's initial investment technically makes you a silent partner in Miller Digital. Andrew never formalized the corporate structure properly. That oversight gives us leverage." "What kind of leverage?" I'd asked, leaning forward in my chair. Marcus's smile had been nothing short of predatory. "The kind that could allow you to take control of the company." For the next 4 months, I played the role of unsuspecting wife perfectly, while Marcus and Samantha helped me formulate a plan. I maintained access to all our accounts, documented every asset, and quietly connected with the board members Andrew had long neglected, all while sleeping next to a man who was building a future with someone else, a future funded by the company we had built together. The final piece fell into place when I discovered that Miller Digital was in financial trouble. Despite its prestigious client list and outward success, Andrew had been mismanaging funds, taking excessive personal draws, and making risky business decisions without board approval. The company needed a significant cash infusion to stay afloat. Cash my family could provide, but only under certain conditions. Which brought me to today, standing in that glass-walled conference room, watching my husband and his mistress through the transparent barrier that had finally made the invisible visible. "It's time," said Marcus, appearing at my elbow with a leather portfolio. "The board members are all here." I took a deep breath and pushed open the door to the main conference room. The conversation died as I walked in. Andrew's face cycled through confusion, surprise, and then poorly concealed panic. "Rebecca, I thought you were in Chicago," he said, moving away from Olivia with an obviousness that might have been comical under different circumstances. "Change of plans," I replied smoothly, taking a seat at the head of the table, Andrew's seat. "I wouldn't miss this meeting for the world." "What meeting?" Andrew asked, looking around at the board members who were studiously avoiding his gaze. "I don't have a board meeting scheduled today." Marcus cleared his throat. "This emergency session was called by the board at Mrs. Miller's request to address some irregularities in the company's financial management." For the next 30 minutes, Marcus methodically outlined Andrew's financial misconduct, the company's precarious position, and the solution: a new investment from my family's trust, contingent upon a restructuring of leadership. "This is ridiculous," Andrew finally exploded, his charming facade cracking. "You can't possibly believe—" "The numbers speak for themselves, Mr. Miller," interrupted Vernon Blackwell, the eldest board member. "The board has reviewed the evidence and found it compelling enough to warrant this session." "And what exactly are you proposing?" Andrew demanded, looking at me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. I opened the leather portfolio and removed the documents inside. "Effective immediately, I will assume the position of CEO. You'll retain a role as creative director if you choose to stay." I slid the papers across the table. "Or you can sell your shares at current market value, which, given the company's financial state, is significantly less than they would have been worth 6 months ago." Andrew stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You can't do this." "She absolutely can," Marcus interjected. "Mrs. Miller's family provided the initial capital that built this company. She was never properly bought out of her ownership stake, making her a full partner. Combined with the proxy votes she's secured from the board, she has controlling interest." I watched Andrew's face as comprehension dawned. All those years of treating me as merely decorative, of assuming I wasn't paying attention to the business side of things, of underestimating me, they were coming back to haunt him now. "The board will take a brief recess," announced Vernon, standing up. "We'll reconvene in 15 minutes to finalize the decision." As the board members filed out, Andrew rounded on me. "This is about Olivia, isn't it?" he hissed, all pretense gone. "You're doing this to punish me." I met his gaze calmly. "This is about the company, Andrew. A company I helped build, which you've been running into the ground while distracted by extracurricular activities." My eyes flickered briefly to Olivia, who had gone pale. "I'm saving Miller Digital, not destroying it." "I'll fight this," he threatened. "You're welcome to try," I replied, gathering my documents. "But it would be an expensive, protracted battle that would only further damage the company's reputation." "Is that really what you want?" I left him standing there, speechless for perhaps the first time in his life. Outside in the hallway, Samantha squeezed my arm supportively. "You were magnificent," she whispered. "How do you feel?" "Oddly calm," I admitted. "Like I've finally taken back control of something that was partly mine all along." When the board reconvened, their decision was unanimous. I was appointed CEO, effective immediately. Andrew, outmaneuvered and outflanked, signed the papers with barely concealed fury. "You'll regret this," he muttered as he pushed past me toward the exit. "I doubt that very much," I replied softly. As the room cleared, Olivia approached me hesitantly. "Mrs. Miller, I should tender my resignation." I studied her for a moment. Young, talented, ambitious, and manipulated by a man who had made promises he couldn't keep. That won't be necessary, Ms. Parker. Your affair with my husband showed poor judgment, but your work for the company has been exemplary. Her eyes widened in surprise. You're not firing me? No, I said, gathering my papers. But you'll no longer be an executive assistant. Report to HR tomorrow morning. You're being reassigned to the digital analytics team, where your skills will be better utilized. Under proper supervision, of course. As I walked out of the conference room, now mine by right, I felt lighter than I had in years. The veneer of perfectionist corporate wife had been shed, revealing the businesswoman who had been there all along, waiting for her moment. That night, I moved into the guest bedroom of our Portland Heights home. Andrew didn't come home at all. Through Samantha, I learned he had checked into the Harrington, the same hotel where he had conducted his affair. The irony wasn't lost on me. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. My first act as CEO was to call an all-hands meeting to address the transition. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Standing before the assembled employees of Miller Digital, my company now, I felt no nervousness, only a sense of purpose. As many of you have already heard, there's been a change in leadership, I began, looking out at the sea of curious faces. I want to assure you that Miller Digital's core mission remains unchanged. What will change is our approach to management, transparency, and employee development. From the back of the room, I spotted Olivia slipping in, attempting to be inconspicuous. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. In the coming weeks, some of you will be reassigned to positions that better match your skills and the company's needs. Others will be empowered with more responsibility. All of you will be evaluated based on your contributions, not your personal relationships. A murmur rippled through the crowd at that last comment. Office gossip traveled fast. No doubt many had already connected the dots between Andrew's absence, my ascension, and Olivia's involvement. My door is open to anyone with concerns or ideas for improvement. That's all for now. Let's get to work. As the employees dispersed, Jack Morrison, our creative director and Andrew's longtime friend, approached me with barely disguised hostility. So you staged a coup, he said bluntly. Should the rest of us be updating our resumes? That depends, I replied evenly. Are you committed to the company's success or to Andrew's ego? Because going forward, only one of those will be valued. Here. Jack's expression wavered between outrage and uncertainty. Andrew built this place from nothing. No, Jack, we built it. The difference is I intend to preserve what we built, not exploit it. After Jack stalked off, Diane from HR appeared at my elbow. Ms. Parker is waiting in your office, as requested. I nodded my thanks and headed to what had been Andrew's corner office, now stripped of his golf trophies and pretentious art. Olivia stood by the window, looking out at the Portland skyline, tension visible in her rigid posture. Sit down, Ms. Parker, I said, taking my place behind the desk. She complied, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Up close, I could see the shadows under her eyes, partially concealed by makeup. She hadn't slept well either. I'd like to clarify. Your new position, I began. You'll be working under Rachel Chen in analytics. Your communication skills are excellent, but your background in data science has been underutilized in your current role. Olivia looked genuinely surprised. You've read my resume? Of course. Unlike my husband, I believe in fully understanding the capabilities of the people I work with. I fixed her with a direct gaze. You're not being punished, Ms. Parker. You're being repositioned where you can add maximum value without the complications of your previous arrangement. She flushed but held my gaze. May I speak frankly, Mrs. Miller? Please do. Andrew told me you were a silent partner in name only, that you had no interest in the business, that your family's investment was just a formality. She swallowed hard. He said you were content being a corporate wife, that you'd abandoned your own ambitions. I couldn't help the short laugh that escaped me. And you believed him? I had no reason not to, she replied, then added more quietly, until now. I studied her thoughtfully. Young, yes. Misguided, certainly. But perhaps not entirely to blame. Andrew has a talent for reshaping reality to suit his narrative, I said finally. It's what made him successful in marketing. Unfortunately, he applied the same techniques to his personal life. Olivia nodded slowly. He made promises. About us, about the future, about a promotion that would put me on the management track. Let me guess. A promise that never materialized into a formal offer or a clear timeline? Her silence was confirmation enough. Ms. Parker, you're not the first woman Andrew has manipulated with promises of advancement, both professional and personal. You're merely the most recent. I opened a folder on my desk. Your performance reviews have been consistently excellent. Your ideas in last quarter's brainstorming sessions led to our most successful campaign this year. Yet you remained an assistant while men with half your qualifications were promoted. Her eyes widened. You know about that? I've been more involved with this company than anyone realized. I closed the folder. Your new position comes with a 15% salary increase and a clear path to management, should your performance warrant it. Your personal choices were questionable, but your professional capabilities are not. As Olivia left my office, visibly stunned by this turn of events, Samantha entered with lunch and a knowing smile. That was unexpected, she commented, setting down bags from our favorite sushi place. I thought for sure you'd fire her on the spot. I shrugged, opening the containers. Firing her would be emotionally satisfying, but strategically unsound. She's talented, and now she's loyal to me instead of Andrew. Besides, keeping her close allows me to monitor her directly. Samantha laughed, shaking her head. You're terrifying sometimes, you know that? In the best possible way. Over the next few weeks, I systematically restructured Miller Digital, addressing the financial mismanagement Andrew had left in his wake. I discovered unauthorized bonuses he had paid himself, client billing discrepancies, and several pending sexual harassment concerns that had been buried by HR at his instruction. Each revelation should have hurt, but instead, they fueled my determination. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about redemption. Redemption for the company that deserved better leadership, for the employees who deserved respect, and for myself, who had allowed my own ambitions to be subsumed for far too long. Andrew, meanwhile, had moved from the Harrington to a downtown condo purchased, I discovered, using company funds as a client entertainment venue. Through Marcus, he made increasingly desperate attempts to negotiate a return to the company. He's offering to give you full control of the Portland operation if you'll let him open a Seattle branch under the Miller Digital umbrella, Marcus informed me during one of our meetings. Absolutely not, I replied without hesitation. The Seattle expansion was my idea from 3 years ago, which he dismissed as unnecessarily risky. He doesn't get to claim it now. When Andrew realized I wouldn't budge, he tried another approach, threatening to poach key clients and start a competing agency. Let him try, I told the nervous account managers. Those relationships are with Miller Digital, not Andrew personally. And I suspect once clients learn about his financial improprieties, they'll be hesitant to follow him anywhere. I was right. When Andrew reached out to our biggest client, Northland Pharmaceuticals, their CFO called me directly. Rebecca, I'll be blunt. Andrew claims you forced him out in some sort of personal vendetta, says you have no experience running an agency. Is this going to affect our campaign rollout? Peter, I replied calmly. I've been intimately involved with Miller Digital's strategy for a decade. The team working on your campaign remains unchanged. The only difference is that I'm now ensuring proper financial oversight and project management, areas where we previously fell short." After a pause, Peter chuckled. "Well, that's refreshing honesty. For what it's worth, I always thought you were the sharper one anyway." One by one, Andrew's attempts to undermine me failed. Clients stayed, employees adapted. Even Jack Morrison eventually came around, admitting grudgingly that the workplace culture had improved under my leadership. 6 weeks after taking control, I had my most uncomfortable encounter yet, confronting Olivia after discovering she had been meeting Andrew for lunch. "It's not what you think," she said immediately when I called her into my office. "He contacted me, wanted information about company operations." "And did you provide it?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "No." She met my gaze steadily. "I told him I wouldn't betray my professional ethics. Not again." I raised an eyebrow. "Why should I believe you?" Olivia reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, opening a voice recording app. "Because I recorded our conversation. I thought you might need it." She placed the phone on my desk and pressed play. Andrew's voice filled the room, alternately cajoling and threatening, trying to extract inside information. Olivia's responses were consistently professional, repeatedly declining to discuss company matters. When the recording ended, I looked at her with new appreciation. That was unexpected. "I made a mistake getting involved with Andrew," she said quietly. "I won't make the mistake of being his pawn now that I see him clearly. Why show me this? You could have simply stopped meeting him." "Because I want you to know where my loyalty lies. You gave me a chance when you had every reason not to. You saw my potential when Andrew only saw—" She trailed off. "When he only saw what he could take," I finished for her. She nodded. "Exactly." As Olivia left my office, I felt an unexpected emotion: respect. She had been complicit in Andrew's betrayal, yes, but she was also one of his victims. In her own way, she was reclaiming her agency just as I was reclaiming mine. 2 months after taking over Miller Digital, I achieved what Andrew had failed to do for years. I secured the Westlake account, a prestigious client that would increase our revenue by 30%. The victory was especially sweet because Victor Chambers, Westlake's CEO, had been Andrew's business school rival. I never trusted Andrew's approach. Victor told me after signing the contract, "Too flashy, not enough substance. Your presentation showed a deeper understanding of our brand needs." That evening, I hosted a company celebration at Portland's newest rooftop restaurant. As I looked around at my employees, truly mine now, I felt a surge of pride. Miller Digital was flourishing under my leadership. The financial bleeding had stopped, morale was up, new clients were signing on. From across the room, I spotted Olivia in deep conversation with Rachel Chen, her new supervisor. Rachel caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. Olivia was excelling in her new role, just as I had suspected she would. My phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. "Incoming. Don't freak out." Before I could respond, I felt a presence beside me. Andrew. He looked different. His usual polished appearance slightly frayed at the edges. His eyes darted around the gathering, taking in the success that no longer belonged to him. "Celebrating. Without inviting the founder?" he asked, his attempt at nonchalance falling flat. "This is a staff celebration, Andrew. You're no longer staff." I kept my voice neutral, aware of curious eyes watching our exchange. "I built this company," he said, an edge creeping into his voice, "and I saved it from your mismanagement." I turned to face him fully. "What do you want, Andrew? You've refused the settlement offer. You're running out of money from what I hear. Your attempts to poach clients have failed." His confident smile faltered. "I want back in. We could run it together. Co-CEOs, like we always planned." I couldn't help but laugh. We never planned that. You decided I was better suited to hosting dinner parties than boardroom meetings, remember? I made mistakes, he admitted, lowering his voice. But this vendetta has gone far enough. That condo? You froze? It was our investment property. The expenses you're questioning? Legitimate business costs. Legitimate business costs don't include jewelry from Tiffany, I replied, watching his face pale. Or weekend trips to Cannon Beach with your executive assistant. All documented, all inadmissible as business expenses. Andrew stepped closer, desperation evident now. Rebecca, be reasonable. You've made your point. You've humiliated me. Isn't that enough? I looked past him to where Olivia stood, now watching our exchange with undisguised interest. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw something unexpected there. Not guilt or fear, but solidarity. This was never about humiliating you, Andrew, I said, returning my attention to him. It was about claiming what was rightfully mine. A company I helped build, a future you tried to steal, and self-respect you assumed I didn't have. I gestured to a nearby waiter. Please escort Mr. Miller out. He's not authorized to be on these premises. As Andrew was led away, protests dying on, his lips, Samantha appeared at my side with 2 champagne flutes. To the new and improved Miller Digital, she said, handing me a glass. Though I'm thinking a name change might be in order. I smiled, taking the champagne. Already in the works. Next quarter, we rebrand as Parker and Associates. Samantha choked on her drink. Parker? As in Olivia Parker? You're naming the company after her? Not after her, I corrected. After my grandmother's maiden name. The fact that it will drive Andrew absolutely insane when he realizes it's not Olivia's namesake is just a bonus. Across the room, I caught Olivia's eye again and raised my glass slightly in acknowledgement. She returned the gesture, a small smile playing at her lips. We weren't friends, would never be friends, but we had both survived Andrew Miller and in our own ways emerged stronger. 6 months later, Parker and Associates was thriving. The Seattle expansion was underway. Our client roster had grown by 40%. And Andrew, I heard through industry, gossip, had taken a mid-level position at a struggling agency in Boise. Standing in what was now my office, redecorated to reflect my taste rather than Andrew's pretentious aesthetic, I looked out at the Portland skyline and felt nothing but satisfaction. On my desk sat the final divorce papers, ready for my signature. Marcus had negotiated terms heavily in my favor, given Andrew's financial improprieties. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Olivia entered with a tablet in hand. The quarterly? Report is ready for your review, she said, professional as always. Her recent promotion to analytics team lead had been earned through consistently excellent work. Thank you, Olivia, I replied, taking the tablet. And congratulations again on the Westlake campaign results. Victor was particularly impressed with the conversion metrics. She nodded, a professional pride evident in her bearing that had replaced the tentative anxiety of months past. There's one more thing, she added, hesitating slightly. Andrew called the office today, asked for me specifically. He wanted to reconnect, suggested dinner to discuss old times. I raised an eyebrow. And I told him I was too busy leading the analytics division of the company he lost to. Consider revisiting past mistakes. A small, satisfied smile played at her lips. Then I hung up. As she left my office, I turned back to the window, pen poised over the divorce papers. In the reflection of the glass, I could see myself clearly. Not as Andrew's wife, or even as the woman who had orchestrated his downfall, but as Rebecca Parker, CEO of a thriving company, architect of her own future. I signed the papers with a flourish. Some might call what I'd done revenge. I preferred to think of it as justice, served not just for me, but for every woman whose potential had been underestimated, whose contributions had been minimized, whose future had been planned. Without her consent, the company wasn't just mine now, it was my legacy. And unlike Andrew, I intended to build something that would last. The next morning, I arrived at the office before anyone else. I wanted time to gather my thoughts before facing the inevitable whispers and stares. Taking over as CEO was one thing. Commanding the respect that came with the position was another challenge entirely. The corner office still felt like Andrew's domain despite the removal of his personal effects. I ran my hand along the sleek mahogany desk, thinking of all the decisions he had made here without consulting me, all the times he had dismissed my input with a patronizing smile. The rising sun cast long shadows across downtown Portland as I unpacked a few personal items: my business school diploma that had gathered dust in our home office, a small jade plant my mother had given me for good luck, and a leather portfolio, embossed with my initials, a gift from my father when I graduated with my MBA. Small touches that declared this space mine now. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Samantha stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups from the artisanal coffee shop across the street. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked, handing me one. "Too much adrenaline," I admitted, taking a grateful sip. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Andrew to pull some legal maneuver we haven't anticipated." Samantha settled into one of the chairs facing my desk. "Marcus is monitoring all avenues. Andrew's legal options are limited, especially with the financial irregularities we've documented. His best move would be to accept the buyout and start fresh somewhere else." "He won't," I said with certainty. "His ego won't allow it. This company is too wrapped up in his identity. Then he'll make himself miserable fighting a battle he can't win." Samantha shrugged. "Not your problem anymore." But it was my problem, at least for now. Andrew knew the inner workings of Miller Digital intimately, the personal quirks of our biggest clients, the unwritten history of projects past, the delicate balance of personalities that made our creative teams function. He could cause significant damage if he chose to. By 9 o'clock, the office was filling with employees. I could feel the weight of their curiosity and uncertainty. A company-wide email had gone out last night announcing the change in leadership, but clinical corporate language couldn't capture the human drama unfolding. These people had worked under Andrew for years. Many were loyal to him. Winning them over would require more than just asserting my legal right to leadership. I spent the morning in back-to-back meetings with department heads, carefully addressing concerns and outlining my vision for the company's future. Most were professional, asking pointed questions about strategy and operations. Jack Morrison, however, made no attempt to hide his hostility. "So what's the real story here?" he demanded when we were alone in the conference room after the others had left. "You've been playing house for years while Andrew built this company, and suddenly you're qualified to run it?" I met his gaze steadily. "I've been playing house, while simultaneously advising on strategic decisions, reviewing major proposals, and connecting Andrew with half the clients currently keeping this company afloat. My Wharton MBA wasn't earned for decorative purposes, Jack." He had the grace to look slightly abashed, but pressed on. "Andrew's been my friend for 15 years. He called me last night, said you ambushed him, that this is all about Olivia." "Is that what he said?" I kept my voice neutral. "Did he also mention the unauthorized bonuses? The commingling of personal and company funds? The harassment complaints buried in HR files?" Jack's expression faltered. "What are you talking about?" I slid a folder across the table. "Review these financial records. If you still want to champion Andrew's cause afterward, you're welcome to join him in his exit." I left him there, staring at the damning evidence of his friend's misconduct. Jack was valuable, one of our most creative directors with a loyal client following. But I couldn't afford to maintain Andrew loyalists in key positions. By midday, I spotted Olivia in the break room, standing alone by the coffee machine. Other employees gave her a wide berth, conversation dying when she approached. The office grapevine had clearly been working overtime. She looked up as I entered, her expression guarded. "Ms. Parker," I acknowledged with a nod as I filled my cup. "Mrs. Miller," she replied quietly, then hesitated. "Or should I say Ms. Miller now?" "Rebecca is fine in informal settings," I said. "We're past the point of unnecessary formalities, don't you think?" A flush crept up her neck. "I suppose we are." I studied her as she nervously stirred her coffee. Designer clothes that were just a bit too expensive for her salary. A diamond bracelet I recognized as coming from Bergdorf's, likely a gift from Andrew charged to the corporate card. Talented, but compromised by her choices. "How are people treating you?" I asked directly. She looked surprised by the question. "About as well as you'd expect. I'm the office pariah." "That will pass," I said. "Quality work usually outlasts gossip. Speaking of which, I'd like your analysis of the Hammond campaign metrics by Friday. Rachel tells me you've already spotted some conversion patterns we missed." Olivia blinked, clearly thrown by this shift to business matters. Yes, I've been running some alternative models. The demographic targeting could be more refined." "Good. Include your recommendations in the report." I turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing, Ms. Parker. That bracelet isn't appropriate for the office. Neither are any other gifts my husband purchased with company funds." Her hand instinctively covered the bracelet. "I didn't know it was—" "Now you do," I cut her off. "I expect it won't appear again." The afternoon brought my first major crisis as CEO. Northland Pharmaceuticals, our biggest client, called an emergency meeting to discuss the leadership transition. I arrived at their downtown offices to find Peter Wilson, their CFO, looking uncomfortable. Seated beside him was Andrew, wearing his most charming smile. "Rebecca," Peter greeted me, standing. "Thank you for coming on short notice." "Of course," I replied smoothly, ignoring Andrew completely as I took a seat. "Northland's concerns are always our top priority." Andrew leaned forward. "Peter and I were just discussing the potential disruption to their upcoming product launch. I've offered to personally oversee the transition to ensure continuity." "How thoughtful," I said, finally acknowledging him with a cool smile. "However, as you're no longer employed by Miller Digital, that won't be necessary." Peter shifted uncomfortably. "Rebecca, Andrew raised some valid concerns about the team's familiarity with our brand voice. He's been our point person for 3 years. With all due respect, Peter, the team handling your account remains unchanged. Diane Matthews is still your lead strategist, supported by the same creative and analytics personnel. The only change is at the top, where you now have a CEO who understands the immense value of Northland's business and won't be distracted by personal matters." I placed a folder on the table. "I've taken the liberty of reviewing your upcoming launch strategy myself. You'll find my notes include several optimizations and a revised media plan that could increase your market penetration by an estimated 12% while reducing overall campaign costs." Peter looked intrigued despite himself. He opened the folder and scanned my detailed analysis, his eyebrows rising slightly. "This is quite thorough," he admitted. "I've been involved behind the scenes on Northland's account from the beginning," I informed him. "Every major strategy presentation Andrew delivered to your team was reviewed and often substantially revised by me first." Andrew's face tightened. "That's an exaggeration." "Is it?" I cut him off, pulling out my phone. "Would you like me to show Peter the email chain from last quarter's presentation? The one where I rewrote the entire market positioning section because, and I quote, 'it's missing the emotional hook that Northland responds to'?" Andrew fell silent, his jaw working. He hadn't expected me to keep those emails, to document my contributions so meticulously over the years. But I had learned early in our marriage to maintain records of my work. even as he routinely took credit for it. Peter cleared his throat. "Andrew, I think I'd like to continue this conversation with Rebecca alone." The dismissal was unmistakable. Andrew stood, straightening his custom suit jacket with forced dignity. "Of course. I just wanted to ensure a smooth transition for a valued client." He laid a business card on the table. "My new contact information, should you need it." After he left, Peter turned to me with new respect in his eyes. That was awkward. "Unavoidable, unfortunately," I replied. "Andrew is having difficulty accepting the transition." "So, I gather." He tapped my folder thoughtfully. "These recommendations are impressive. Why didn't we see this level of strategic thinking before?" I chose my words carefully. Andrew has always been the face of Miller Digital. I was content to contribute behind the scenes. Recent events have necessitated a more direct approach. Peter nodded slowly. "I've known a few men like Andrew in my time, charismatic, convincing, and completely convinced of their own narrative even when it diverges from reality." He closed the folder decisively. "Northland will be staying with Miller Digital, Rebecca. Or should I say Parker and Associates?" Andrew mentioned something about a rebranding. I smiled. News travels fast. "Yes, we'll be transitioning to Parker and Associates next quarter. My grandmother's maiden name. She was my first business mentor. Well, I look forward to working directly with you moving forward." He stood, extending his hand. "And Rebecca? Between us, it's about time." I drove back to the office feeling both vindicated and exhausted. Confronting Andrew had been draining, but necessary. This wouldn't be the last client he attempted to poach. I needed to shore up our relationships across the board. When I arrived, Jack Morrison was waiting in my office, looking troubled. "These numbers," he said without preamble, gesturing to the financial documents I had given him earlier. "Is this accurate? Andrew really diverted company funds for personal expenses?" "Every figure is documented and verified," I confirmed, setting down my briefcase. "The company has been subsidizing Andrew's lifestyle for years. The condo downtown, first-class travel unrelated to business, even the watch he gave you for your birthday last year." Jack looked down at his wrist where the Rolex gleamed. "Jesus, I had no idea." "Most people didn't. That was by design." He ran a hand through his hair, looking suddenly older. "I owe you an apology. I assumed. Well, the usual cliché. Vindictive wife, midlife crisis husband." "An understandable assumption given the incomplete information you had," I said, neither accepting nor rejecting his apology outright. "What happens now?" he asked. "With the company, I mean. Are you planning layoffs? Restructuring?" I motioned for him to sit. "Jack, you're one of our most valuable creative assets. Your team consistently produces our best work. I have no intention of disrupting that." Relief flickered across his face. "And Andrew? Will there be legal consequences?" "That depends." "On him," I said honestly. "I've offered a fair buyout that includes a non-disclosure agreement covering certain aspects of his financial management. If he accepts, we all move forward. If not..." Jack nodded, understanding the implications. "For what it's worth, I think you're handling this with more grace than most people would." "This isn't about grace," I corrected him. "It's about preserving what works at Miller Digital while excising what doesn't. Andrew built something valuable here, despite his flaws. I intend to build upon that foundation, not demolish it out of spite." After Jack left, I spent an hour on conference calls with our other major clients, personally assuring them of our continued commitment to their accounts. Most responded positively, though a few remained wary. Change always created uncertainty, and uncertainty was bad for business. It was after 7 when I finally packed up to leave. The office had emptied hours ago. Even the cleaning crew had come and gone. As I walked to my car in the underground parking garage, I heard footsteps behind me. "Working late on your first day?" Andrew's voice echoed in the concrete space. "Trying to prove something?" I turned slowly, keeping my expression neutral. "Following me now, Andrew? That seems beneath you." He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the scotch on his breath. "You think you've won, don't you? Taken my company, my clients, my reputation." "Your company? Your clients?" I shook my head. "That right there is why we're in this situation, Andrew. Your inability to recognize that nothing was ever solely yours." "I built Miller Digital from nothing," he hissed, his carefully maintained facade cracking. "While you played hostess and decorated our house, I was working 16-hour days, securing clients, managing teams." "While I played hostess," I repeated softly, "I was also reviewing every major proposal, editing your presentations, connecting you with my family's network, and offering strategic insights you claimed as your own. The difference is, I never needed the credit. Until now." He stepped closer, invading my personal space. "You won't be able to run it without me. The clients trust me, not some housewife playing businesswoman." I refused to back away, holding my ground. "Northland doesn't seem to agree. Neither does Westlake, who I'm meeting tomorrow. Or did you think Peter wouldn't call Victor immediately? After our meeting?" Uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Victor would never work with Miller Digital." "With you at the helm?" "No. But Parker and Associates represents a fresh opportunity." I stepped around him toward my car. "Go home, Andrew. Or to wherever you're staying these days. You're not thinking clearly right now." His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. "This isn't over, Rebecca." I looked pointedly at his hand until he released me. "Actually, it is. Any further communication should go through Marcus. And Andrew? If you ever approach me in a parking garage again, I'll file for a restraining order." I drove home on autopilot, adrenaline coursing through my system. Andrew's desperate anger was concerning. People with his level of narcissism rarely accepted defeat gracefully. I would need to warn the security team, perhaps upgrade the systems at both the office and my home. The house felt cavernous and empty. We had purchased it 3 years ago when Andrew's career was soaring, a showcase property in Portland Heights, with panoramic views of the city. I had overseen every detail of the renovation, creating a space that reflected our success while remaining warm and inviting for the clients we frequently entertained. Now, those carefully designed rooms felt like a museum to a failed marriage. Andrew's presence lingered everywhere. In the kitchen where he'd made his famous Sunday pancakes, in the media room calibrated to his exact preferences, in the master bedroom where I hadn't slept since discovering his betrayal. I poured myself a glass of wine and stepped out onto the terrace. Portland's lights twinkled below, the Willamette River a dark ribbon cutting through the city. My city now, in a way it hadn't been before. For years, I had experienced Portland through the filter of being Andrew's wife, going to his favorite restaurants, attending functions that benefited his career, socializing with people he deemed important. My phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. "First day survival status?" "Intact," I texted back. "Confrontation with A at Northland, and again in parking garage. Northland staying. Need to upgrade security." Her response was immediate. "Parking. Garage? Details tomorrow. Security company on it first thing." I smiled at her efficiency. Samantha had been my rock through this entire ordeal, offering both emotional support and practical advice. Our friendship dated back to our undergraduate, days long before Andrew entered the picture. She had never been entirely convinced by his charm, though she had kept her reservations largely to herself until recently. My phone buzzed again, this time with an email notification. Olivia Parker. The subject line read simply, FYI. Intrigued, I opened it to find a forwarded email chain between Andrew and 3 of our mid-level account managers, dated earlier today. In it, Andrew suggested a secret meeting to discuss opportunities outside the current structure and promised significant incentives for client relationships that transition. He was trying to poach our staff and clients to start a competing agency. Olivia had added just one line. Thought you should be aware. He approached me as well. This was unexpected. Olivia had no obligation to share this information with me. If anything, aligning with Andrew might have offered her a cleaner slate than remaining at Miller Digital under my leadership. That she had chosen to warn me instead suggested either a calculated bid to gain my favor or a genuine desire to break free from Andrew's influence. Perhaps both. I replied with equal brevity. Noted. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. Sleep eluded me that night. I paced the house, mentally cataloging all the ways Andrew might attempt to sabotage the company. Client relationships could be damaged. Key employees might be lured away. Proprietary information could be compromised. We needed to move quickly to secure our position. By dawn, I had formulated a plan. I called Samantha on my way to the office, outlining what needed to happen. We need to accelerate the rebranding, I told her. Parker & Associates should launch within the month, not next quarter. New contracts need to be drafted for all clients with specific non-solicitation clauses. Key employees should be offered retention bonuses and equity stakes. That's aggressive, Samantha noted. And expensive. Can the company absorb those costs right now? It can't afford not to, I replied. Stability is worth the investment. I'd rather offer preventative bonuses now than emergency raises to counter Andrew's offers later. When I arrived at the office, I called an emergency meeting of the executive team, or what remained of it after Andrew's departure. There were notable gaps at the table. Andrew had always kept a tight circle at the top, limiting who had full eye visibility into company operations. We have a situation, I began without preamble. Andrew is actively attempting to poach both clients and staff to form a competing agency. We need to respond decisively. I outlined my strategy, addressing their concerns as they arose. Most were practical questions about implementation and timeline, but Diane from HR raised a more fundamental issue. This is going to be expensive, she pointed out. The retention bonuses alone could strain our cash reserves, not to mention the rebranding costs. I'm prepared to make a personal investment to cover the shortfall, I replied. My family's trust will provide the necessary capital in exchange for a small equity stake. This silenced the room. It was one thing to take control of the company through legal maneuvering. It was another to put my own money on the line. The gesture demonstrated both my commitment and my confidence in our future. We should also consider streamlining operations, suggested Rachel Chen, our analytics director and Olivia's new supervisor. There's redundancy in our project management structure that's costing us efficiency. Agreed, I said. Rachel, I'd like you to head up an operational review committee. Identify inefficiencies and propose solutions within 2 weeks. By the end of the meeting, we had a comprehensive strategy to counter Andrew's efforts. As the team dispersed, Jack lingered behind. Andrew called me again last night, he admitted. Made me an offer to join his new venture. Quite generous, actually. I studied him carefully. And I told him I'm staying put. Jack shrugged. The devil you know, right? I smiled slightly. Is that how you see me now? The devil? More like a force of nature, he replied with unexpected candor. I underestimated you, Rebecca. Most of us did. Andrew most of all. Throughout the day, a parade of employees came to my office, some to report similar approaches from Andrew, others to seek reassurance about the company's future. I listened to each one, addressing their concerns directly and honestly. Transparency would be a hallmark of my leadership, in stark contrast to Andrew's selective sharing of information. Mid-afternoon, Rachel brought me her preliminary findings on operational inefficiencies. Among them was a curious pattern of overlapping responsibilities in the digital team. It seems Andrew created several positions that essentially duplicate existing roles, she explained. For instance, we have 2 separate people handling social media analytics, reporting to different supervisors but doing nearly identical work. Why would he structure things so inefficiently? I wondered aloud. Rachel hesitated. Based on the timestamps of when these positions were created, they align with the hiring dates of certain female employees. The implication was clear. Andrew had created unnecessary positions to bring attractive young women into the company, circumventing normal hiring protocols and justifying their presence with manufactured responsibilities. How many such positions have you identified? I asked, a sinking feeling in my stomach. 7 so far, Rachel replied, all filled by women under 30, all reporting directly to Andrew or his closest allies. And their qualifications? Mixed. Some, like Olivia, are actually quite talented but underutilized. Others... She trailed off diplomatically. Others were hired primarily for decorative purposes, I finished for her. I want a complete audit, Rachel. Skills assessments, performance reviews, the works. Those with genuine ability should be properly positioned. The rest. Severance packages? She suggested. Fair ones, I agreed. This isn't their fault. They applied for positions that were offered to them. The responsibility lies with Andrew and the executives who enabled this practice. After Rachel left, I sat quietly, absorbing this new information. Andrew's misconduct ran deeper than I had initially realized. It wasn't just financial impropriety and one affair. It was a systematic pattern of using the company to facilitate his personal proclivities. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Olivia stood in the doorway, a tablet in hand. The preliminary Hammond analysis, she said, stepping inside. I thought you might want to review it before tomorrow's client call. I gestured for her to sit. Thank you. Rachel speaks highly of your work. Olivia placed the tablet on my desk, looking uncomfortable. May I speak frankly? Please do. I know about the operational audit, she said. I know what Rachel is finding, about the positions created for certain employees. I leaned back in my chair. Does that concern you? It should, shouldn't it? She met my gaze directly. I was his assistant, the most visible of them all. People will assume I was part of the same pattern. Were you? I asked simply. She flushed but didn't look away. My qualifications are real. My MBA is from Cornell. My previous experience includes 3 years at a top New York agency. I was overqualified to be anyone's assistant, but it was the only opening at Miller Digital when I moved to Portland. And your relationship with Andrew? Was that part of a career advancement strategy? The direct question seemed to catch her off guard. It wasn't that calculated. He was charming, attentive, made me feel valued when the rest of the executive team treated me like a glorified secretary. I nodded, understanding better than she knew. And now? What do you want from your career at Parker & Associates, assuming you stay? I want what I've always wanted, to be judged on my abilities, not my appearance or my personal relationships. She straightened in her chair. The analytics position is challenging me in ways the assistant role never did. I'm good at it. I can be great at it, given the opportunity. I studied her, seeing beyond the designer clothes and carefully applied makeup to the ambition beneath. Olivia Parker was intelligent, hardworking, and compromised by poor judgment. But she was not unique in that regard. Many promising careers had been temporarily derailed by ill-advised relationships. Your past relationship with Andrew is your personal business, I said finally. Your performance at Parker and Associates is mine. Meet or exceed Rachel's expectations, and your career will advance accordingly. It's as simple as that. Relief flickered across her face. Thank you. As she turned to leave, I added, "One more thing, Ms. Parker. If Andrew continues to contact you about business or otherwise, I expect to be informed immediately." "Of course," she agreed. "Though after our last conversation, I doubt he'll try again." "Oh?" This piqued my interest. "What was said?" Olivia smiled slightly. "I told him I'd rather work for the woman he underestimated than the man who overestimated himself." After she left, I reviewed her analysis of the Hammond campaign. It was exemplary, thorough, insightful, and innovative in its approach. Whatever her personal failings, Olivia Parker was indeed talented. The rest of the week passed in a blur of client meetings, strategy sessions, and legal consultations. Andrew continued his efforts to undermine the company, though with diminishing success as we shored up our relationships and secured our top talent. The accelerated rebranding to Parker and Associates was announced, generating positive buzz in the Portland business community and signaling a clean break from the past. Friday evening found me once again working late, reviewing the finalized retention packages for our key staff members. A soft knock drew my attention to the door, where Samantha stood with a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses. "Enough," she declared, entering without invitation. "You've worked 14-hour days all week. Time to celebrate surviving your first week as CEO." I smiled, closing my laptop. "Is there something specific to celebrate?" "Several things, actually." She set down the glasses and began unwrapping the foil from the champagne bottle. First, Andrew's attempt to poach Westlake failed spectacularly. Victor called me himself to say he's doubling their ad spend with us next quarter. "That is good news," I admitted. Second, 3 of the decorative hires have accepted generous severance packages. No drama involved. The cork popped with a satisfying sound. And third, Andrew's attorneys have suddenly become very interested in settlement discussions. This caught my attention. Why the change of heart? Samantha handed me a glass of bubbling champagne. Apparently, Marcus may have mentioned our intention to file a civil suit regarding the misappropriation of company funds, with the possibility of criminal charges to follow. I took a sip, savoring both the crisp taste and the implications. So he's finally realized his position is untenable. It seems so. Samantha settled into the chair opposite me. The terms will still need to be negotiated, but this is progress. He's finally accepting reality. I wasn't entirely convinced. Andrew had never been one to surrender easily, especially when his ego was involved. But perhaps the mounting evidence against him had finally penetrated his self-delusion. "There's something else," Samantha continued, her tone shifting. "I had dinner with Jack Morrison last night. Strictly business," she added at my raised eyebrow. "He mentioned that Andrew's been struggling financially since the separation. Apparently, he leveraged himself significantly to maintain his lifestyle these past few years. Without access to company funds, he's in trouble," I finished, feeling an unexpected twinge of something like pity. For all his charisma and success, Andrew had built his life on a foundation of deception, lying to me, to his employees, and ultimately to himself about the sustainability of his choices. "Does that change anything for you?" Samantha asked carefully. I considered the question. "No," I said finally. "The settlement offer is fair. More than fair, considering the circumstances. His financial difficulties are a consequence of his own actions." Samantha nodded, relieved. "Good, because you've worked too hard to start second-guessing yourself now." We finished the champagne as the Portland skyline transitioned from sunset to twilight, discussing the future of Parker and Associates and the challenges that still lay ahead. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely optimistic. The company was stabilizing. Andrew's threats were being contained. My leadership was gaining acceptance. Later that night, as I drove home through the quiet streets of Portland Heights, I allowed myself to truly believe that the worst might be behind me. The house no longer felt like a museum to my failed marriage, but rather a space in transition, much like its owner. I kicked off my heels in the entryway and padded to the kitchen for a glass of water. A blinking light on the answering machine caught my eye. Few people still called our landline, which I had maintained primarily for emergencies. I pressed play, expecting perhaps a telemarketer or a wrong number. Instead, Andrew's voice filled the room. "Rebecca," he said, his tone unnervingly calm. "I thought you should know I've accepted a position with Meridian Partners in Seattle, Executive Creative Director. I start next month." I froze, glass halfway to my lips. Meridian Partners was one of our biggest competitors. "I'll be taking the settlement offer," he continued. "No need for further legal entanglements. You win this round." A pause, then. "But Portland's a small market, Rebecca. Our paths will cross again, professionally speaking. And when they do..." The message ended abruptly, his final words hanging in the air like a half-formed threat. I set down my glass, my momentary complacency shattered. Andrew might be retreating, but he wasn't surrendering. He was merely repositioning himself for a different kind of battle. One fought across conference tables and client pitches rather than divorce proceedings. The realization was oddly galvanizing. If Andrew intended to transform our personal conflict into professional competition, so be it. Parker and Associates would need to be not just good, but exceptional, innovative, indispensable to our clients. I pulled out my phone and texted Samantha. A taking position with Meridian in Seattle. Settlement proceeding, but new competitive threat. Her response came seconds later. Game on. Indeed, I thought, a smile slowly spreading across my face. Game on. The morning sun streamed through the windows of what was once our shared master bedroom, now transformed into my personal sanctuary. The king-sized bed had been replaced with a queen, the heavy masculine furniture exchanged for lighter pieces in pale wood and brass. Even the wall color had changed from Andrew's preferred charcoal gray to a serene sage green. Every trace of our shared life had been methodically erased, room by room over the past month. I sipped my coffee, reviewing the final settlement agreement that Marcus had delivered yesterday. Andrew had capitulated on most points, accepting a buyout significantly lower than his initial demands. The non-compete clause was carefully worded to prevent him from directly poaching our clients for 18 months, though his new position at Meridian Partners in Seattle skirted the geographical restrictions. He would retain our vacation property in Cannon Beach, a concession I had deliberately allowed, knowing the maintenance costs would strain his already precarious finances. My phone chimed with a calendar reminder. Executive team meeting, 9 a.m. The official unveiling of our rebranding as Parker and Associates. I dressed with particular care, selecting a tailored crimson suit that projected both authority and confidence. The color choice was deliberate. Studies showed that women in red were perceived as more powerful in business settings. Every advantage mattered as we entered this new phase. The Portland traffic was surprisingly light, allowing me to arrive at the office early. The building's exterior still bore the Miller digital signage, though that would change by the end of the week. Inside, however, the transformation was already evident. The reception area had been redesigned with a sleek new desk and updated lighting. The dated corporate artwork Andrew had selected years ago had been replaced with pieces from local Portland artists, a subtle reinforcement of our community connections. "Morning, Rebecca," greeted Diane from HR, falling into step beside me as I headed toward the conference room. "The new business cards arrived. Want to see?" She handed me a small cream-colored rectangle. The design was elegant and understated. Parker and Associates in a classic serif font, with a small geometric emblem in the corner that echoed elements of my grandmother's family crest. Below my name was simply Founder and CEO, a deliberate choice to establish that this was a new beginning, not merely a continuation under different leadership. Perfect, I approved, tucking the card into my portfolio. Are the materials ready for the meeting? All set up. Jack wanted to add some last-minute changes to the creative presentation, but I told him the deadline was yesterday. I smiled. Slightly. Jack's resistance to deadlines was legendary, but his creative brilliance usually justified the accommodation. Give him 10 minutes before we start. His input matters on this. The conference room was buzzing with energy when I arrived. The executive team, now expanded to include several previously overlooked middle managers with exceptional talent, was gathered around the polished table, reviewing the rebranding materials. A large digital display at the front of the room showed our new logo and brand identity. Rachel Chen approached, tablet in hand. The website goes live at noon. Social media announcements are scheduled to roll out hourly after that. Press release has been picked up by the Portland Business Journal and 4 industry publications so far. Excellent. Any word from our key clients? All positive. Northland has already updated their vendor records with our new name. Westlake sent over a congratulatory arrangement. It's in your office. I nodded, pleased with the smooth transition. The accelerated rebranding schedule had been ambitious, but necessary to create clean separation from the Miller digital era and Andrew's lingering influence. Jack Morrison arrived moments later, slightly disheveled but radiating creative energy. Sorry, slight delay. Had an inspiration for the Westlake campaign at 5 a.m. Been refining it since. His formerly hostile attitude had gradually evolved into gruff respect over the past weeks, especially after I had approved his bold proposal for Westlake's new product line when the client was hesitating. I took my place at the head of the table, surveying the team before me. Some faces were new, promoted from within to fill gaps in the executive structure. Others were familiar, but transformed by the company's evolution, including Olivia Parker, who now attended these meetings as Rachel's second-in-command in analytics. She sat quietly toward the end of the table, dressed in a professional navy dress that was notably more conservative than her previous style. The diamond bracelet was conspicuously absent. Today marks a new chapter, I began, my voice carrying clearly across the room. Parker and Associates isn't just a name change. It represents a fundamental shift in how we operate, how we serve our clients, and how we value our team members. For the next hour, we reviewed the rebranding initiatives, updated client strategies, and financial projections. The mood was optimistic but focused, everyone aware of the challenges ahead. Meridian Partners was a formidable competitor even before Andrew joined their ranks. His intimate knowledge of our operations and client relationships would make them even more dangerous. Before we conclude, I said, addressing the unspoken concern, let's discuss Meridian. Andrew starts there next month as Executive Creative Director. We should anticipate aggressive moves toward our clients, particularly those with whom he had personal relationships. Westlake is secure, Jack offered immediately. Victor despises Meridian's CEO almost as much as he dislikes Andrew. Northland could be vulnerable, cautioned Diane. Their marketing director worked with Andrew at his previous agency. They have history. I nodded, making a note. Rachel, put together a detailed analysis of where we're most vulnerable. I want proactive outreach to any client who might be targeted. We don't wait for them to come to us with concerns. We address potential issues before they arise. As the meeting concluded, I asked Olivia to stay behind. She remained seated, a flicker of apprehension crossing her face as the room emptied. How are things in analytics? I asked when we were alone. Good, she replied cautiously. Rachel's been an excellent mentor. The Hammond campaign is outperforming projections by 17%. I saw the numbers. Impressive work. I studied her for a moment. The woman before me was markedly different from the one who had been involved with Andrew. More focused, less concerned, with maintaining a certain image. I have a proposal for you. Wariness entered her expression. What kind of proposal? Meridian will be hosting the Northwest Digital Marketing Awards next month. Andrew will undoubtedly be there, making connections, perhaps approaching our clients informally. I'd like you to attend as part of our delegation. Surprise replaced the wariness. You want me to face Andrew? In public? I want you to demonstrate visibly that you've moved on professionally and are thriving at Parker & Associates. Your presence will undermine any narrative he might try to construct about rescuing talent from a hostile environment. She considered this, understanding the strategy at play. It would certainly make a statement. But why me specifically? Wouldn't Rachel or Jack be more appropriate representatives? They'll be there too. But you, Olivia, are a symbol of something important. That this company values talent and performance over personal history. That we don't discard people because of past mistakes. That's a powerful message to our industry and our team. A small smile played at her lips. And it would irritate Andrew immensely to see me there as a successful member of your team rather than hiding in shame. That's a secondary benefit, I acknowledged with my own smile. Will you do it? She straightened in her chair. Decision. Made. Absolutely. I'll coordinate with Rachel on the presentation materials. After she left, I remained in the conference room, reviewing my notes from the meeting. A text message from Samantha broke my concentration. Lunch? Have updates on A's financial situation. We met at a small French bistro several blocks from the office, tucked away in a courtyard where business conversations could occur without concern for eavesdropping. Samantha was already seated at a corner table when I arrived. You look like a CEO, she observed approvingly as I sat down. The red suit was a good choice. Power dressing 101, I replied with a smile. What's this about Andrew's finances? Samantha waited until our orders had been taken and the server had moved out of earshot. He's liquidating assets. The condo downtown sold last week, significantly, under market value. His investment portfolio has been partially cashed out as well. This was surprising. The settlement amount, while not particularly generous, shouldn't have required such desperate measures. That seems extreme for someone who just secured a high-level position at Meridian. That's the interesting part. My contact at Meridian says his compensation package is heavily performance-based. The base salary is actually quite modest. So he's cash poor until he proves himself, I mused, understanding the implications. Andrew would be under immense pressure to deliver results quickly, which likely meant aggressive moves toward our clients. Anything else I should know? Samantha hesitated, then said quietly, He's been seeing someone. A junior account executive at Meridian, Ashley something. I absorbed this information with surprising neutrality. Andrew's personal life was no longer my concern, except where it intersected with business matters. Still, the pattern was telling. Another younger colleague, another workplace relationship. Some people never learned from their mistakes. Professional concern, not personal, I clarified, seeing Samantha's careful observation of my reaction. If he's repeating his pattern of behavior at Meridian, it could eventually create vulnerabilities we might need to be aware of. Of course, she agreed, though her expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced by my detachment. Speaking of vulnerabilities, how's the Olivia situation working out? Better than expected, I admitted. She's proven quite valuable in analytics, and her insider knowledge of Andrew's thinking has helped us anticipate several moves. I've asked her to join our delegation at the Northwest Awards next month. Samantha's eyebrows rose. Bold move. Are you sure you can trust her? Trust is earned incrementally, I replied. So far, she's made consistently good choices since the transition. People deserve the opportunity to redefine themselves beyond their worst mistakes. A surprisingly compassionate perspective, given the circumstances. I shrugged slightly. It's not compassion so much as pragmatism. Talent is hard to find. I'm not discarding a valuable asset because of her history with Andrew. Our lunch arrived, temporarily pausing the conversation. As we ate, I found my thoughts drifting to the Northwest Awards event. It would be my first public face-to-face encounter with Andrew since the separation, set against the backdrop of industry peers and potential clients. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. Parker and Associates and Meridian partners, newly minted rivals with a complicated history, performing a delicate dance of professional courtesy while privately calculating competitive advantages. "You're strategizing," Samantha observed, recognizing my distant expression. "What are you planning?" "The Northwest Awards," I admitted. "It's a significant opportunity to establish Parker and Associates as a forward-thinking agency distinct from its predecessor. We need to announce something noteworthy, a new service offering perhaps, or a significant client acquisition." "I might have something," Samantha said, lowering her voice despite the restaurant's relative privacy. "Vertex Technologies is dissatisfied with their current agency. They're preparing to send out RFPs for their complete digital portfolio, approximately $3 million in annual billing." I kept my expression neutral despite my immediate interest. Vertex was a rapidly growing tech firm specializing in sustainable energy solutions. Exactly the kind of progressive, future-oriented client we wanted in our portfolio. "How do you know this?" "Their CFO is my brother's golf partner. Very preliminary information, but the RFP should be issued within the next 2 weeks." "Before the Northwest Awards," I noted, possibilities already forming in my mind. "Do you think your brother could arrange an introduction? Not to circumvent the RFP process, but to ensure we're included in the consideration set." Samantha smiled. "Already done. You're having coffee with James Harrington, their VP of Marketing, tomorrow, at 3 p.m. I laughed softly. "You continue to amaze me with your efficiency." "That's why you keep me around," she replied with a wink. Back at the office, the energy was palpable as we counted down to the official rebranding launch. At precisely noon, Rachel and her team gathered around her desk to watch the new website go live. A small cheer went up as the Parker and Associates logo appeared on the screen, sleek and professional against a background that subtly incorporated Portland landmarks. "Social media announcements deploying now," confirmed the digital marketing specialist, monitoring the scheduled posts. First responses already coming in, overwhelmingly positive. I watched the real-time engagement metrics with satisfaction. The rebrand was being received exactly as we had hoped, as a natural evolution rather than a dramatic rupture, signaling continuity for clients while establishing a distinct new identity. My office phone rang, the first call to come through, under our new name. "Parker and Associates, Rebecca Parker speaking," I answered, the new introduction feeling both foreign and right on my tongue. "Rebecca, it's Victor Chambers from Westlake." His booming voice carried a note of amusement. "Calling to congratulate you on the rebrand. Very elegant transformation." "Thank you, Victor. We're excited about this new chapter." "I imagine you are." He paused, then added more seriously, "I had an interesting call this morning, from Andrew. He's trying to arrange a lunch next week to reconnect." This was sooner than expected. Andrew wasn't wasting any time in approaching our clients, even before officially starting at Meridian. "I appreciate you letting me know." "I turned him down, of course," Victor continued. "Told him I'm quite satisfied with our current agency relationship. But I thought you should be aware. He mentioned he'd be reaching out to several of your shared connections to maintain important relationships during his transition." "Shared connections," I repeated, understanding the implications. "Andrew, would be contacting every client with whom he had developed personal rapport. That's valuable intelligence, Victor. Thank you. Consider it a professional courtesy. And Rebecca? That campaign concept Jack presented last week? We're green-lighting it. Full budget. Launching in Q4. After we disconnected, I immediately called an impromptu meeting with the account management team. If Andrew was making preemptive moves toward our clients, we needed to respond rapidly. Effective immediately, I want senior leadership personally connecting with every client, I instructed the assembled team. Not emails, not phone calls, face-to-face meetings wherever possible. Bring updates on their campaigns, new ideas, whatever creates value. The message is clear. Parker & Associates is fully engaged and innovating on their behalf. Should we mention Andrew's outreach? Asked one of the account directors. Only if they bring it up first, I replied. This isn't about Andrew or Meridian. It's about reinforcing our commitment to our clients. If they mention being contacted, acknowledge it neutrally and redirect to the value we're providing. The team dispersed with clear direction, energized by the concrete action plan. I returned to my office to find Olivia waiting, a tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but I thought you should see this immediately. She handed me the tablet, open to an industry news site. The headline made my breath catch. Miller joins Meridian as partner, brings equity stake. Partner, equity stake. This wasn't just a high-level creative position. Andrew had somehow managed to buy his way into partnership at one of the region's largest agencies. The article detailed how Andrew had leveraged personal assets to make a significant investment in Meridian's growth strategy, quoting him as saying he was excited to help shape the agency's future in the competitive Northwest market. Now his liquidation of assets made sense. He hadn't been desperate for cash. He had been consolidating resources for this strategic move. A partner with equity had far more influence than a mere creative director, no matter how senior. This changes the competitive landscape significantly, I said, handing the tablet back to Olivia. Thank you for bringing it to my attention so quickly. She nodded, a small frown creasing her forehead. There's something else you should know. The junior account executive he's apparently seeing at Meridian, Ashley Winters, she was an intern here last summer. Andrew personally oversaw her work. The implications were clear. Andrew had been grooming this relationship while still at Miller Digital, still married to me. The pattern extended further back than I had realized. How do you know this? I asked, curious about Olivia's sources. Ashley and I had a few conversations during her internship. She mentioned Andrew was taking a special interest in her career, offering private mentoring sessions. Olivia's expression conveyed exactly what kind of mentoring had likely occurred. I should have said something then, but I was compromised by my own situation. I studied her thoughtfully. Why tell me this now? It's hardly relevant to our business concerns. Because understanding Andrew's patterns helps predict his actions, she replied simply. He cultivates relationships he can leverage later. He's been planning this move to Meridian for months, possibly before you discovered our relationship. Ashley was his insurance policy, someone already inside Meridian who could facilitate his transition. The strategic calculation behind Andrew's actions was both impressive and disturbing. While I had been focused on reclaiming the company, he had been setting up his next power play with careful precision. We need to accelerate our timeline, I decided. The Vertex Technologies opportunity is now critical. If we can secure them before the Northwest Awards, it sends a powerful message about which agency truly represents the future of digital marketing in this region. Olivia nodded in agreement. Rachel and I can put together a preliminary strategy tonight. We've been researching their sustainability initiatives. There's a natural alignment with our approach. Do it, I authorized. And Olivia, I want you in the initial meeting with James Harrington tomorrow. Your analytics perspective will be valuable. The rest of the day was a blur of client calls, strategy sessions, and media interviews about the rebranding. By evening, industry publications were featuring stories about Parker & Associates' emergence from Miller Digital, most with a positive slant emphasizing innovation and forward momentum. Only one article mentioned the personal drama behind the transition, and even that was framed as a professional reinvention story rather than a scandal. I was reviewing the final press coverage in my office when Jack knocked on my open door, looking unusually somber. "You've seen the news about Andrew?" he asked, dropping into the chair across from my desk without waiting for an invitation. "Partner at Meridian. Yes, I've seen it." "He called me," Jack admitted. "Offered me creative directorship of a new division they're creating. Double my current salary, plus performance bonuses and a small equity stake after 2 years." I kept my expression neutral, though internally I was calculating the significant blow losing Jack would represent. His creative vision had shaped our most successful campaigns, and his institutional knowledge would be invaluable to Meridian's competitive efforts against us. "That's a generous offer," I acknowledged. "Are you considering it?" Jack leaned forward, eyes intent on mine. "That depends. Where do you see Parker & Associates in 5 years, Rebecca? And where do you see me in that vision?" The question was direct, challenging me to articulate a future compelling enough to counter Andrew's offer. This wasn't just about money. It was about creative opportunity and professional legacy. "In 5 years, Parker & Associates will be the premier boutique agency in the Northwest," I responded without hesitation. "We'll maintain a selective client portfolio focused on innovative companies driving positive change, technology, sustainability, healthcare advancement. Our work will win national recognition, not just regional awards." I paused, then addressed the second part of his question. "As for you, Jack, I see you as partner, not just creative director. Equal equity stake, equal voice in agency direction. We formalize it at the 2-year mark, assuming we meet our growth targets." Surprise flickered across his face. "Partner? You're serious?" "Entirely. I've been planning to discuss it after the rebranding settled, but Andrew's move accelerates the timeline. You're essential to our success, Jack. I want you invested in our future, literally and figuratively." He leaned back, considering my offer. "I'd need details. Written proposal, equity percentages, performance metrics." "You'll have them tomorrow," I promised. "But I need your answer tonight. Not because I want to pressure you, but because we're entering a critical phase. I need to know if you're with us before we pursue Vertex Technologies." Jack's eyebrows rose. "Vertex? That's ambitious. We're meeting their VP of Marketing tomorrow. I want you there, if you're staying." He stood, decision apparently made. "Draft the partnership proposal. I'll be at the Vertex meeting." At the door, he paused. "Andrew never offered me partnership. Not once in 15 years. Always talked about it as something in the distant future, never concrete terms." After Jack left, I exhaled slowly, the tension I'd been suppressing finally surfacing. Andrew's move to partner at Meridian had raised the stakes significantly. The competition between our agencies was no longer just business. It was deeply personal, with Andrew undoubtedly motivated to prove he could outperform the company now led by his ex-wife. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Settlement papers received. Andrew signed without further amendment. Waiting for your signature to finalize." At least that chapter was closing. The divorce would be final within weeks. The financial separation complete. All that remained was the professional rivalry, which, in its way, was cleaner and more straightforward than the messy interpersonal dynamics of a failing marriage. I gathered my things to leave, pausing at the large window, overlooking Portland's downtown. The city lights twinkled in the evening darkness, a constellation of possibilities. Somewhere out there, Andrew was likely celebrating his new partnership, perhaps with Ashley, plotting his competitive strategy against the company that had once been his identity. Let him plot, I thought with unexpected serenity. Parker and Associates was no longer tethered to Andrew's vision or limited by his ego. We were creating something new, something that would eventually render Miller Digital a distant memory in the industry's consciousness. My phone rang, Samantha calling to confirm details for tomorrow's meeting with James Harrington from Vertex Technologies. As I answered, I turned away from the window and the city beyond it, focusing instead on the future I was building step by deliberate step. Andrew had taught me one valuable lesson during our years together. Perception shapes reality. In the marketing world, now I would use that lesson to shape a reality he never imagined possible. One where the wife he had underestimated and the mistress he had discarded would together help build an agency that eclipsed his greatest achievements. The game had, indeed, changed. But contrary to Andrew's expectations, I was no longer playing by his rules. The meeting with James Harrington from Vertex Technologies was scheduled at Driftwood Coffee, a quiet upscale cafe known for its private alcoves and discretion, popular among Portland's business elite for informal negotiations. I arrived 15 minutes early, wanting to select the optimal seating and mentally prepare. Jack Morrison and Olivia Parker would join shortly, but this initial connection needed to be established properly. I chose a corner table partially screened by indoor plants, offering privacy while still allowing me to observe the entrance. Settling in with a cappuccino, I reviewed Vertex's recent press coverage on my tablet. Their innovative solar storage technology had received significant attention in sustainability circles, but their marketing had been surprisingly conventional, a disconnect between their forward-thinking products and their public presentation. Rebecca Parker? I looked, up to see a tall man with salt and pepper hair and intelligent eyes behind stylish glasses. James Harrington carried himself with the relaxed confidence of someone comfortable in his own authority. Mr. Harrington, I rose to greet him, extending my hand. Thank you for making time in your schedule. James, please, he said, shaking my hand firmly. And thank you for the invitation. I've been following your agency's evolution with interest. We exchanged pleasantries as he ordered a black coffee, discussing Portland's emerging tech scene and the challenges of the current economic climate. He was easy to talk to, articulate without being overbearing, a good sign for potential collaboration. I understand congratulations are in order, he said once his coffee arrived. The rebranding to Parker and Associates seems to have been well received in the industry. Thank you. It represents more than just a name change. It's a philosophical realignment toward partnerships rather than transactions. Which brings me to why I wanted to meet. He smiled slightly. I assumed this wasn't purely social, though Samantha was deliberately vague about the purpose. Samantha respects confidentiality, I acknowledged. But yes, there's a professional dimension. We're aware that Vertex is considering new agency representation, and I wanted to ensure Parker and Associates is on your radar. James studied me thoughtfully. Direct approach. I appreciate that. He took a sip of his coffee. Yes, we're preparing to issue RFPs next week. Our current agency has been adequate, but we're looking for a partner who truly understands the intersection of technology and sustainability messaging. The door opened and Jack and Olivia entered the cafe, scanning for us. I waved them over, making introductions as they joined our table. Jack leads our creative vision, I explained, and Olivia heads our digital analytics team. I wanted you to meet them informally before any official process begins. James raised an eyebrow. Unusual to bring team members to a preliminary discussion. We're an unusual agency, I replied with a smile. We believe in transparent collaboration from the outset. Jack and Olivia represent the blend of creative innovation and data-driven strategy that defines our approach. For the next 40 minutes, we engaged in a wide-ranging discussion about Vertex's market position, challenges, and aspirations. Jack asked insightful questions about their brand identity, while Olivia deftly introduced analytics perspectives that clearly intrigued James. We were careful not to pitch explicitly. This wasn't about selling services yet, but establishing rapport and demonstrating our understanding of their industry. "Your team is impressive," James admitted as we prepared to conclude. "I particularly appreciate the integration of creative and analytics. Most agencies we've worked with keep those functions siloed." "Integration is our cornerstone," I confirmed. "No decision is made in isolation. Creative concepts are data-informed, and analytics always serve a creative purpose." As James stood to leave, he hesitated, then asked, "I should mention, Andrew Miller reached out to me yesterday, said he's joining Meridian as partner and would appreciate the opportunity to discuss Vertex's needs." He watched my reaction carefully. I assume that's not coincidental timing. I maintained a neutral expression, despite the internal jolt of confirmation that Andrew was indeed targeting the same opportunity. The marketing community in Portland is relatively small. High-value potential clients like Vertex naturally attract attention. I met his gaze directly. "I hope you'll evaluate each agency on its current capabilities and vision, rather than past affiliations." "Of course," he agreed. "Though I admit I'm curious about the transition from Miller Digital to Parker and Associates. The industry gossip has been interesting." "I'm sure it has," I replied with a small, practiced smile. "The reality is simpler than the rumors. Miller Digital was built on my family's initial investment and my strategic input, though that contribution wasn't always visible externally. Parker and Associates represents a natural evolution with leadership that matches the reality of who built the business." James nodded, seemingly satisfied with this diplomatic framing. "The RFP will be issued Monday. I look forward to seeing your proposal." After he left, Jack let out a low whistle. "He's already been approached by Andrew. That was fast." "Andrew's desperate to prove himself at Meridian," I observed. "Landing Vertex would be a statement win." "Which makes it essential that we secure it instead," Olivia added, already making notes on her tablet. James responded well to the analytics approach. "I think there's a significant opportunity to differentiate ourselves through data visualization of campaign performance." Jack nodded in agreement. "Their current marketing lacks soul, all technical specifications and industry jargon. We need to humanize their innovation story." He looked at me with newfound respect. Smart move bringing us both to this meeting. James clearly wasn't expecting that level of integration right from the start. "We need to move quickly," I said, gathering my things. "Olivia, assemble a research team and deep dive into their market position, competitive landscape, and digital footprint. Jack, I want conceptual directions by Wednesday. Nothing polished, just strategic approaches. We'll reconvene Thursday morning to align on the proposal strategy." Back at the office, I found Marcus waiting in my private conference room, settlement papers in hand. The final divorce agreement required my signature to complete the legal separation from Andrew after 12 years of marriage. "Everything's in order," Marcus confirmed as I scanned the document. "The financial terms are as negotiated. The house remains yours, along with your full ownership of Parker and Associates. He keeps the beach property and his personal investments." I signed each flagged page methodically, a strange calm settling over me. These signatures represented not just the end of a marriage, but the severing of the last personal ties to Andrew. From this point forward, our relationship would be purely professional, as competitors in the same industry. "I'll file these today," Marcus said, gathering the papers. "You should receive the final decree within 3 weeks." He paused, studying me. "Most clients show more emotion at this stage. Are you all right?" "I processed those emotions months ago," I replied honestly. "Today is just formality." After Marcus left, I allowed myself a moment alone in the conference room, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. A year ago, I had been playing the role of supportive corporate wife, sublimating my own ambitions to facilitate Andrew's career. Now I was CEO of a rebranded agency, finalizing a divorce, and preparing to compete directly against my ex-husband for a major client opportunity. The transformation was so complete, it was almost dizzying. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. Rachel Chen entered, her expression serious. "Sorry to disturb you, but we have a situation developing with the Hammond account," she said. "They've requested an urgent meeting tomorrow morning." Apparently, Meridian reached out with what Hammond described as an intriguing alternative approach to their fall campaign. I controlled my immediate frustration. Hammond Pharmaceuticals was one of our established clients, with a significant annual budget. Andrew was clearly implementing a systematic strategy to undermine our client base. "Who made the approach from Meridian?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. "Andrew personally," Rachel confirmed. "Hammond's marketing director said he presented it as a friendly, competitive option since he was familiar with their needs from his previous role." The phrasing was carefully calculated to skirt the non-solicitation clause in our settlement. By positioning it as a competitive agency option rather than directly poaching the client, Andrew was exploiting a technical loophole. "Schedule the meeting for 9 a.m., I instructed. "I'll lead it personally with you and Olivia. Let's prepare an enhanced version of their current campaign strategy with additional optimization recommendations. We need to demonstrate that we're not just maintaining their account, but actively improving performance." The rest of the afternoon was consumed with client calls, each carefully designed to reinforce relationships that might be vulnerable to Andrew's outreach. By evening, I was mentally exhausted, but satisfied with our proactive stance. We had reaffirmed commitments from several key accounts, effectively neutralizing Andrew's initial wave of approaches. As I prepared to leave for the day, Jack appeared in my doorway, portfolio in hand. "Got a minute? I've been thinking about Vertex, and I couldn't wait until tomorrow." We spread his preliminary concepts across my desk, rough sketches and taglines that captured the essence of what would become a formal pitch. Jack's creative instincts were exceptional. He had already honed in on a powerful narrative that positioned Vertex's technology as invisible innovation, solutions so seamlessly integrated into daily life that they transformed the future, without disrupting the present. "This direction has legs," I agreed, particularly impressed by a concept that visualized energy flowing through everyday objects, illuminating the hidden technology that powered sustainable living. "Refine this for the proposal, but keep some flexibility. We'll need to respond to the specific parameters in the RFP." Jack gathered his materials, then hesitated. Andrew called again this afternoon, sweetened the offer, accelerated equity, timeline, signing bonus. I looked up sharply. "And?" I told him I'm staying put. A small smile played at his lips. "Said I prefer working with a CEO who sees me as a partner rather than a subordinate." He didn't take it well. "I imagine not," I replied, appreciating Jack's loyalty while recognizing we needed to formalize our agreement quickly. "I'll have the partnership proposal on your desk first thing tomorrow." After Jack left, I checked my calendar for the upcoming Northwest Digital Marketing Awards, now just 10 days away. The event had taken on outsized importance as the first public venue where Parker and Associates and Meridian partners would occupy the same space, with Andrew and me inevitably crossing paths. Industry peers would be watching closely, interpreting every interaction for hints about the competitive dynamics between us. My phone chimed with a text from Samantha. "Dinner at my place tonight? Have some Vertex intel you'll want to hear." Samantha's downtown loft offered a panoramic view of Portland at sunset, the fading light casting the city in shades of gold and amber. She handed me a glass of Pinot Noir as I settled into her comfortable living room. "You look exhausted," she observed, curling up in an armchair opposite me. "Rough day?" "Productive but intense," I replied, taking a grateful sip. "Hammond is wavering. Andrew's approaching our clients systematically, and the divorce is finally signed." "That's quite a trifecta." She studied me with the attentive concern of long friendship. "How are you really doing, Rebecca? Not the CEO version, the actual human being underneath all those polished presentations." I considered the question honestly. Strangely energized, despite the challenges. There's something clarifying about having a worthy opponent. It focuses the mind. Is that how you see Andrew now? As an opponent, rather than a betrayer? The betrayal is personal history, I said after a moment's reflection. The competition is present reality. I can't afford to view him through the lens of our marriage. That creates blind spots and emotional vulnerabilities. As the head of Parker and Associates, I need to see him clearly as the business competitor he's chosen to become. Samantha nodded slowly. That's remarkably healthy, assuming you've genuinely processed the personal side rather than just compartmentalizing it. Therapy has its benefits, I acknowledged with a small smile. Now, you mentioned Vertex Intelligence? Always back to business, she chided gently, but reached for a folder on her coffee table. My brother golfed with James Harrington this afternoon. Apparently, James was quite impressed with your team approach. He specifically mentioned Olivia's analytics perspective as refreshingly insightful. That's promising, I agreed, pleased that Olivia had made such a positive impression. Any other feedback? More interesting than feedback, insider knowledge about their RFP priorities. She handed me the folder. They're planning a major product launch in Q1 next year. Their primary concern is finding an agency that can translate highly technical innovations into emotionally resonant consumer messaging. I scanned the notes Samantha had compiled, detailed information about Vertex's proprietary battery technology that could revolutionize home solar energy storage. This is exactly what we need for the proposal. Jack's already developing concepts around invisible innovation that align perfectly with this direction. There's one more thing, Samantha added, her expression growing more serious. James mentioned meeting with Andrew yesterday. Said Andrew emphasized his deep understanding of technology marketing from his years handling the Microtech account at Miller Digital. That's a stretch, I noted, remembering how Andrew had frequently complained about the complexity of the Microtech materials. He delegated most of that work to the technical writers. True, but James wouldn't know that, Samantha pointed out. And apparently Andrew brought along Meridian's technical director, someone with genuine credentials in the space. This information recalibrated my assessment of the competitive threat. Andrew was compensating for his own limitations by leveraging Meridian's existing expertise. A smart strategy I would have expected from him. We'll need to counter with our own technical authority, I mused. Rachel has a background in engineering. Communications. We should emphasize that in our proposal team. We spent the next hour refining our approach to the Vertex opportunity, identifying strengths we could leverage and potential vulnerabilities in Meridian's positioning. By the time I left Samantha's loft, I had a clearer strategic direction and renewed confidence in our competitive advantage. The following morning began with the Hammond Pharmaceuticals meeting. Their marketing team arrived looking uncomfortable, the telltale sign of clients who have been approached by a competitor but aren't entirely convinced switching is the right move. We value our relationship with your agency, began Carl Stevens, their marketing director, after the preliminary pleasantries. But in the interest of transparency, I should mention we've received an interesting proposal from Meridian Partners regarding our fall campaign. We appreciate your transparency, Carl, I replied smoothly. Before we discuss that, I'd like to share some enhancements we've developed for your current strategy. Olivia took the lead, presenting a sophisticated analysis of Hammond's recent campaign performance, identifying micro-segments within their target audience that showed higher conversion potential. Rachel followed with tactical recommendations to optimize messaging for these segments, projecting a 23% improvement in engagement metrics. This is quite comprehensive, Carl admitted, clearly impressed by the depth of thinking. You've obviously been considering these optimizations for some time. Continuous improvement is our operational standard, I confirmed. We don't wait for competitive pressure to enhance our clients' strategies. By the meeting's conclusion, Hammond had not only recommitted to their current campaign, but approved an increased budget for the enhanced targeting approach. As they left, Carl lingered behind momentarily. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, Andrew's approach felt opportunistic rather than strategic. There was nothing in Meridian's proposal that demonstrated a genuine understanding of our market the way your team just did. "Thank you for that candor," I replied, "and for giving us the opportunity to earn your continued trust." The Hammond situation reinforced what would become our standard approach to Andrew's competitive moves. Respond not with defensive justifications, but with elevated strategy and deepened client understanding. It was a resource-intensive approach that required significant work from our senior team, but the results justified the investment. The remainder of the week was consumed with preparations for both the Vertex proposal and the Northwest Awards. The RFP arrived Monday as promised, with an aggressive 2-week timeline for submissions. We assembled a dedicated team, clearing their schedules of other responsibilities to focus exclusively on this opportunity. Jack and I finalized his partnership agreement, structuring terms that recognized his creative leadership while establishing clear performance expectations. The formal announcement would wait until after the Northwest Awards, but internally, Jack immediately stepped into an expanded leadership role, participating in executive decisions beyond the creative department. Friday afternoon, I called Olivia to my office to discuss her role at the upcoming awards event. She arrived promptly, notepad in hand, professional as always these days. "The awards are next Saturday," I began. "We'll be seated at table 7, directly, adjacent to the stage. Meridian typically occupies table 3, which puts them in our sightline throughout the evening." "Strategic seating," Olivia observed with a small smile. "Have you confirmed who's attending from their side?" "Andrew will be there, of course, along with their senior leadership team. We've also heard his companion, Ashley, will be attending." Something flickered in Olivia's expression. Not jealousy, I noted with interest, but something more like concerned recognition. "Ashley is very young," she said carefully. "Ambitious but inexperienced. I worry about her." "That's surprisingly empathetic, given your history." Olivia met my gaze directly. "I understand better than most what it's like to be manipulated by Andrew's attention and promises. The difference is, I've had the opportunity to learn from that. Experience in a supportive environment." She gestured to indicate the company around us. "Ashley may not be so fortunate." Her perspective gave me pause. I had been viewing Ashley purely as a strategic element in the competitive landscape, Andrew's new ally at Meridian and potential vulnerability. Olivia's comment reminded me of the human dimension, the pattern of behavior that had affected multiple women in Andrew's orbit. "Your concern is noted," I said. "However, our professional focus remains on presenting Parker & Associates as the innovative, forward-thinking agency in this market. To that end, I'd like you to present our case study on the Hammond campaign optimization during the afternoon workshop session." Surprise registered on her face. "That's a high-visibility slot. Are you sure I'm the right choice? Rachel has more seniority." "Rachel will be participating in the leadership panel. You have the technical expertise to explain. The analytical approach and your presentation skills are excellent." I paused, then added more directly, "It also makes a statement about our agency values, that we recognize and promote talent regardless of circumstance." Understanding dawned in her expression, "And it demonstrates that I've moved into a significant role post-Miller Digital, countering any narrative Andrew might suggest about my position here." "Precisely. Are you comfortable with that assignment?" She straightened, a new confidence evident in her posture. "Absolutely. I'll prepare a presentation that showcases both the technical innovation and the business impact." "Good." Work with the design team to ensure the visuals align with our new brand identity. This will be many people's first exposure to Parker and Associates. We need to make a strong impression. As the week progressed, the Vertex proposal took shape with impressive speed. Jack's creative concept had evolved into a comprehensive campaign strategy, supported by Olivia's data-driven audience analysis and Rachel's technical communications expertise. We were creating something truly distinctive, a perfect blend of emotional resonance and technical credibility. Thursday afternoon, I received an unexpected email from James Harrington. Impressive progress on your rebranding implementation. Would value your perspective on technology marketing over coffee before formal proposals are due. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Driftwood. The invitation was intriguing. Outside the formal RFP process, but not technically improper. I consulted quickly with Marcus to ensure we weren't crossing any procurement guidelines, then accepted the meeting. Driftwood Coffee was busier than during our previous meeting, but James had secured the same secluded corner table. He rose to greet me with a warm handshake. "Thank you for making time on short notice," he said as we settled with our drinks. "I hope this doesn't put you in an awkward position with the RFP process." "Not at all, as long as we maintain appropriate boundaries about the specific opportunity," I assured him. "I'm happy to discuss broader perspectives on technology marketing." He nodded, seemingly relieved. "That's exactly what I'm seeking. You see, we're at an inflection point with our technology. For years, we've focused on the engineering achievements, efficiency ratios, storage capacity, technical specifications. But to reach mainstream adoption, we need to shift the conversation to lifestyle impact and emotional benefits. The classic technology marketing challenge, I acknowledged. Bridging the gap between what your engineers are proud of creating and what your customers actually care about experiencing. Exactly. His enthusiasm was evident. Our current agency keeps pushing us back toward specifications and comparison charts. But I've seen the campaigns Parker and Associates developed for Westlake's home automation system. You made invisible technology feel essential to daily life without a single technical diagram. I smiled, recognizing the reference to our most awarded campaign from the previous year. Technology should feel magical, not mechanical. Consumers don't need to understand how it works to value what it does for them. That's the perspective I've been trying to articulate to our engineering team, James said, leaning forward intently. They're brilliant at creation but struggle with translation. For the next 45 minutes, we engaged in a wide-ranging discussion about technology marketing philosophy, carefully avoiding any specific details about the pending Vertex proposal. James shared insights about their internal culture and brand aspirations, while I offered perspectives on emerging consumer attitudes towards sustainable technology. As our meeting concluded, James hesitated, then said, "I should mention that I had a similar conversation with Andrew earlier this week. He presented a very different viewpoint, emphasized the importance of technical authority in establishing market leadership." "That's a valid perspective," I replied diplomatically. "Different approaches work for different brands and objectives." "Indeed." James studied me thoughtfully. "It's interesting how two people who worked together for so many years could develop such divergent marketing philosophies." "We didn't develop them together," I clarified gently. "Andrew and I always had fundamentally different views on what motivates consumer behavior. The difference is that now we each lead agencies that reflect our distinct perspectives." James nodded, seeming to absorb this insight. "Well, I look forward to seeing both approaches articulated in your proposals." "Thank you for your time, Rebecca." The meeting left me cautiously optimistic about our Vertex prospects. James clearly resonated with our consumer-centric approach to technology marketing, which aligned perfectly with the direction of our proposal. More significantly, he had independently identified the philosophical divide between Andrew's technical authority positioning and our emotional benefit strategy. Returning to the office, I found Samantha waiting in my private conference room. an unusual tension evident in her posture. "What's happened?" I asked immediately, closing the door behind me. "Andrew's scheduled a press conference for Monday morning," she said without preamble. "Industry sources suggest he's announcing a major new client acquisition for Meridian." My mind raced with implications. Monday is 2 days before Vertex proposals are due, and 3 days before the Northwest Awards. Exactly. The timing isn't coincidental. "Do we know which client?" Samantha shook her head. "Nothing confirmed, but there are rumors that Microtech is consolidating their agencies. They currently split their business between 3 firms, including a small portion with us. Microtech had been a Miller Digital client for years, though we handled only their digital campaigns while larger agencies managed their traditional media. If Andrew had somehow convinced them to consolidate their entire portfolio with Meridian, it would be a significant coup and a direct hit to Parker and Associates. "We need confirmation," I decided. "Reach out to our contact in Microtech's marketing department discreetly, and we should prepare contingency plans for Monday, depending on what's announced." "Already working on it," Samantha assured me. "If it is Microtech, we should have a positive announcement of our own ready to counter it. Perhaps accelerate the partnership announcement with Jack." "Good thinking, but we might need something more substantial." I considered our options. Let's prepare 2 versions of a press release. One focused on Jack's partnership if the Microtech news is confirmed, another highlighting our Hammond campaign optimization if it's something else. We need to project strength and momentum regardless of Andrew's announcement. As Samantha left to implement these preparations, I stood at my office window, watching Portland's business district transition from workday to evening. Somewhere, across the city, Andrew was orchestrating his next move in our competitive chess match, timing his announcement for maximum impact on both the Vertex Pitch and the Northwest Awards. The strategic calculation was classic Andrew, leveraging a business victory for personal validation, creating a narrative of successful reinvention after our separation. It was exactly what I would have expected from him, yet somehow the predictability made it no less effective as competitive strategy. My phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "Final Vertex concepts ready for review. You're going to want to see these tonight." I texted back confirmation that I'd wait for him, then sank into my chair, suddenly aware of the weight of responsibility I carried, not just for my own professional vindication, but for the livelihoods of everyone at Parker and Associates. The competition with Andrew had higher stakes than personal satisfaction. It would determine the future trajectory of the agency we had both helped build, now moving in divergent directions under separate leadership. The next week would bring this first phase of our professional rivalry to its initial climax: Andrew's mysterious announcement, the Vertex proposal submission, and finally the Northwest Awards, where we would face each other publicly for the first time since our separation. The outcome would establish the competitive narrative between Parker and Associates and Meridian partners for months to come. I opened my laptop and began preparing for all contingencies, determined that whatever Andrew announced on Monday, Parker and Associates would emerge stronger rather than diminished. This wasn't just about responding to his moves anymore. It was about defining our own path forward, independent of the shadow he still attempted to cast. Monday morning arrived with the nervous energy that precedes a competitive showdown. Andrew's press conference was scheduled for 10 a.m. at Meridian's downtown offices. We had prepared our countering announcements, though still without confirmation of what exactly he would announce. "Conference room in 5 minutes," I instructed my executive team via text, wanting us to watch the live stream together, ready to implement our response strategy immediately. Jack, Rachel, Olivia, and our communications director gathered around the large screen, expressions tense but determined. Samantha joined remotely via video call, positioned to monitor industry reactions on social media in real time. The Meridian Partners logo filled the screen promptly at 10 a.m., followed by an establishing shot of their sleek conference room. Andrew appeared at the podium, looking every inch the successful agency partner in a perfectly tailored suit, his confidence evident in his relaxed posture and easy smile. "Good morning," he began, his broadcaster-perfect voice resonating with practiced authority. "Thank you for joining us for this exciting announcement. Today marks a significant evolution in Meridian Partners' service offerings and market position." I studied his delivery closely, noting the subtle tells that indicated genuine excitement beneath the polished presentation. This wasn't just performative. He truly believed he was delivering transformative news. "I'm pleased to announce that Meridian Partners has acquired TechVision Analytics, the premier AI-driven marketing intelligence firm in the Northwest," Andrew continued. "This acquisition immediately establishes Meridian as the market leader in data-driven creative strategy, combining our award-winning creative approach with TechVision's proprietary analytics platform." The room fell silent as we processed this unexpected development. TechVision Analytics was indeed a respected boutique firm specializing in advanced marketing intelligence, and a direct competitive threat to our analytics capabilities, Olivia's department in particular. This strategic acquisition was finalized last week, Andrew continued, and represents a $4.2 million investment in Meridian's future. I'm particularly pleased to welcome TechVision's founder, Dr. Emily Chen, as Meridian's new Chief Analytics Officer. The camera panned to show a distinguished Asian woman nodding acknowledgement. My mind raced with implications. Dr. Chen was a recognized authority in marketing AI, with multiple patents and a Stanford pedigree. Her presence would significantly enhance Meridian's credibility with technology clients, including Vertex Technologies. "Thoughts?" I asked the room as Andrew continued detailing the acquisition's benefits. "This directly targets our pitch to Vertex," Jack observed immediately. "He's addressing our analytics advantage head-on." "It's a sophisticated move," Rachel acknowledged. "TechVision has excellent technical credentials that will appeal to engineering-focused clients." I turned to Olivia, whose department would be most directly affected by this development. "Your assessment?" She appeared thoughtful rather than intimidated. TechVision's platform is impressive but rigid. Their AI models require substantial data sets to function effectively. They're excellent for large, established brands, but less adaptable for emerging technologies or market innovations. "Can we leverage that limitation in our Vertex proposal?" I pressed. Olivia nodded decisively. "Absolutely. We can emphasize our human-centered analytics approach, the ability to identify emerging patterns with limited data, to anticipate consumer behavior rather than just analyzing historical trends." "Get that messaging into the proposal immediately," I instructed. "Jack, we need to accentuate the innovation narrative in our creative approach, position Parker & Associates as the agency for companies creating new markets, not just competing in established ones." As the team dispersed to implement these adjustments, I remained watching Andrew's concluding remarks. His final statement was clearly intended for a specific audience. This acquisition demonstrates Meridian's commitment to technology leadership and data-driven innovation, values increasingly essential to forward-thinking clients in emerging technology sectors. The message to Vertex couldn't have been clearer if he'd named them directly. "He's making a strong play," Samantha commented through the video call once the press conference ended. "Industry response is positive. Meridian's stock is up 3% already. Several tech marketing blogs are predicting this positions them favorably for the Vertex account." "Let them predict," I replied with more confidence than I entirely felt. "We're not countering with our prepared announcements that would look reactive. Instead, we focus entirely on delivering an unbeatable Vertex proposal. Victory speaks louder than press releases." The next 48 hours were a blur of intense work, our team functioning with remarkable cohesion to refine the Vertex proposal in response to this new competitive development. Jack's creative concept evolved to emphasize the human impact of invisible technology, while Olivia restructured our analytics approach to highlight the limitations of purely AI-driven systems for emerging product categories. By Wednesday morning, we had produced a proposal that genuinely excited me. A perfect fusion of emotional storytelling and technical credibility, positioning Parker and Associates as the ideal partner for a company seeking to translate complex innovation into meaningful consumer impact. "It's ready," I announced after the final review session. "This represents the best of who we are as an agency." Jack nodded in agreement. "Whether we win or not, I'm proud of this work. It embodies everything Parker and Associates stands for." I dispatched Olivia and Rachel to hand-deliver the proposal to Vertex's headquarters. Another small touch that differentiated us from the digital submission Meridian would likely make. Personal connection at every touchpoint was our philosophical stance, one Andrew had always considered inefficient. With the proposal submitted, attention shifted to the Northwest Digital Marketing Awards scheduled for Saturday evening. Our team had 5 nominations across various categories, while Meridian boasted 7, including one for a campaign Andrew had initiated at Miller Digital before his departure, now claimed by Meridian. "Wardrobe consultation in your office," Samantha announced Thursday afternoon, arriving with a garment bag. For Saturday night, she revealed a stunning emerald green gown with architectural details that managed to be both elegant and authoritative. The perfect statement piece for my first public appearance opposite Andrew. "It's perfect," I acknowledged, genuinely impressed by her selection. "You'll be the most memorable person in the room," she confirmed with satisfaction. "Which is exactly what we want. This isn't just an awards ceremony, it's your official debut as the face of Parker and Associates." Saturday arrived with surprising calmness. I spent the morning at home, reviewing presentation notes for a panel discussion scheduled before the evening awards. Olivia's workshop session on analytics innovation was programmed directly opposite a technical showcase from Meridian featuring Dr. Chen, a scheduling conflict that seemed suspiciously convenient for limiting direct comparison. The afternoon sessions at the downtown convention center were well attended. Industry professionals from across the Northwest gathered to network and learn. My leadership panel on agency evolution in the digital era drew a standing room only crowd, many curious about the transformation from Miller Digital to Parker and Associates. I addressed the topic directly in my opening remarks. Evolution isn't just about adapting to external market forces. It's about aligning your organization's structure with its fundamental values. Parker and Associates represents not a revolution, but a revelation of principles that were always present, but perhaps not fully expressed. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Andrew slip into the back of the room midway through the panel, watching with an unreadable expression before departing, before the Q&A session. The brief sighting was oddly energizing, reminding me of the stakes of the evening ahead. After the afternoon sessions concluded, I changed into the emerald gown in the venue's VIP suite, applying a final layer of confidence with carefully chosen jewelry and flawless makeup. The reflection that greeted me bore little resemblance to the supportive corporate wife I had been a year ago. This woman exuded authority, purpose, and self-possession. The awards ceremony began with cocktails in the grand ballroom, agencies clustered in their respective territories like allied nations at a diplomatic function. Parker and Associates had claimed a prime position near the entrance, our team resplendent, in coordinated formal wear that subtly incorporated our brand colors. Meridian occupied the opposite side of the room, their larger contingent including several faces I recognized from Miller Digital, talent Andrew had managed to poach despite our retention efforts. At their center stood Andrew himself, commanding attention in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, laughing with apparent ease as he introduced Dr. Chen to key industry figures. "He's watching you," murmured Jack, appearing at my elbow with a champagne flute. "Hasn't stopped since you entered." "Let him watch," I replied, accepting the champagne. "We're not here for Andrew's attention. We're here to establish Parker and Associates as a formidable industry presence." "Mission already accomplished," Jack noted, gesturing subtly toward several potential clients now gravitating toward our group, attracted by the energy and confidence we projected. The inevitable encounter came during dinner, moments before. The awards presentation was scheduled to begin. I was returning from a brief conversation with the event organizer when Andrew materialized in my path, clearly having orchestrated this seemingly casual intersection. "Rebecca," he greeted me, his voice carrying just the right note of professional cordiality. "The rebranding seems to be going well. Congratulations." "Thank you, Andrew," I replied with equivalent politeness. "And congratulations on the Tech Vision acquisition, a strategic move." "I thought you'd appreciate that." A small smile played at his lips. "We seem to be thinking along similar lines these days." "Similar targets, perhaps," I corrected gently, "but distinctly different approaches." His eyes narrowed slightly. "The Vertex proposal?" "Among others." I maintained a pleasant expression despite the competitive undercurrent. "May the best agency win." "Always my intention," he replied, the double meaning evident. "Your team is surprisingly cohesive given the recent transitions. Olivia's workshop today was quite impressive. She's clearly flourished under your leadership." The acknowledgement seemed genuine, catching me momentarily off guard. "She's exceptionally talented. I suspect you knew that all along." "I recognized certain qualities," he admitted. "Perhaps not all the right ones." Before I could respond, to this unexpected moment of self-awareness, the announcement came for guests to take their seats for the awards presentation. Andrew inclined his head slightly. "Good luck tonight, Rebecca." "You as well," I replied, genuine in my professional respect despite everything else between us. The awards ceremony proceeded with typical industry showmanship, dramatic music, effusive introductions, emotional acceptance speeches. Parker and Associates secured wins in 3 categories, including the prestigious Best Integrated Campaign for our Westlake work. Meridian claimed 4 awards, their Tech Vision acquisition featuring prominently in their data innovation victory. The final award, Agency of the Year, brought a hush over the room. This recognition, determined by a combination of work quality, business growth, and industry influence, carried significant prestige and marketing value. The nominees for Agency of the Year are... The presenter's voice echoed through the ballroom. Meridian Partners, Parker and Associates, Cascade Creative, and Northwest Digital Collective. I caught Andrew's eye across the room, a moment of silent acknowledgement passing between us. Whatever happened next, we had both built something worthy of this recognition in our separate ways. And the Northwest Digital Marketing Agency of the Year is... The dramatic pause stretched longer than necessary. Parker and Associates. The eruption of cheers from our table momentarily drowned out all other sound. Jack squeezed my shoulder supportively as I rose to accept the award, the weight of the crystal trophy matching the significance of the moment. At the podium, I surveyed, the room filled with industry peers, competitors, and potential clients. Thank you for this tremendous honor, especially meaningful for an agency in its first year under a new identity, but built on a decade of experience and expertise. My gaze found Andrew in the audience, his expression composed but unable to entirely mask his disappointment. Transformation requires both vision and courage, the vision to see what could be, and the courage to pursue it despite uncertainties. Parker and Associates was born from that combination, creating space for authentic talent to thrive. As I concluded my brief acceptance speech, I felt a profound sense of completion. The journey from supportive wife to industry leader had been tumultuous but ultimately transformative. Parker and Associates' victory tonight wasn't just about an award. It was validation of a philosophy that valued substance over appearance, collaboration over domination. Returning to our table with the trophy, I found a text message waiting on my phone. From James Harrington at Vertex Technologies, congratulations on a well-deserved win. Looking forward to our partnership announcement next week. I smiled, slipping the phone back into my evening bag. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destroying what someone else has built. It's about creating something better than they ever imagined possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.